Perhaps surprisingly, there was also a cinema at Cliffe on the Hoop Peninsula. It was unusual for a small village to have its own purpose-built cinema. More likely, films would be shown in the village halls. The Globe, as it was called, was adapted from a former government building in Church Street, and it opened on August Bank Holiday 1921 with the film Ivanhoe.
Well, it was basically a bit of a pyramid, really. It was a proper, like an old warehouse, really. It sort of had a triangular pent on the top of the roof and then a single-storey bottom. And inside, it slowly climbed up towards the back where the projection room was. If I remember, you sit round the other way. The reception was at the front, up a set of concrete steps.
It's only a tiny little foyer, wasn't it? The little tiny cash desk on the side.
Yeah.
But it was like a proper little cinema, but very miniature.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you go in and you have carpet on the floor, didn't it?
Yes.
So, yes, it had carpets.
And then there were two doors. There was one on the left and one on the right. I can't remember why there was two doors. In the middle, there was a panel, which was solid at the bottom, that quite often had what films were going to be on. And at the top, it was a glass window with this plaque in it.
And the chairs were very comfortable for cinema chairs.
Big, funny, comfortable seats as a kid, I remember.
It had 350 seats with shows once nightly and ticket prices from 4p to 1 shilling. The Globe also had a Saturday morning club for children known as the Tuppenny Rush.
They would have a children's film that was shown. So I think Bambi was one of them. I think there has been a few of them that I went to over that sort of between 5 and 10 years old.
My first experience that I remember was going to see 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I must have been 7 or 8, so it must have been about 1953, 54.
Yeah.
And Wally Seal was running the cinema.
Yes.
As a kid, I remember him. Yeah, he was a funny little guy. That's all I can sort of remember of him. I mean, a lot of the ladies in the village worked there as ushers.
Is Dr. Jean on the ticket counter?
Yes.
Yeah.
Later, ticket prices rose to 9p, 1 shilling, 1 and 6, 2 shillings, and the lady in the ticket office was paid 2 shillings a night for a 5-night week.
One of Jean's jobs was to walk around with the tray, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, with the ice creams and that,
Yeah.
and the chocolates.
The cinema was heated by pipes which ran along the wall, coming from a coke-fuelled boiler installed in an outside shed. In spite of this, the cinema was quite cold, and often patrons and staff would bring along a small blanket to wrap around their legs.
You could hear the rain on the roof. If there was a terrific rainstorm, you just had to put up with the sound effects inside the cinema as well as on the screen.
It poured hard with rain. And when it rained hard in there was only a corrugated tin roof. And it was like someone drumming on it. So half of the dialogues and stuff that went on, because he never used to stop, we used to drown it out. And if it was a real rainy night, me dad and mum wouldn't go up to it because you couldn't hear nothing at all.
And of course, in those days, there was no air conditioning or anything like that, but you were still allowed to smoke. So, of course, gradually the cinema would fill up with smoke. And you'd get this haze come down over the screen.
A blue haze used to come down down the screen. Yeah, I remember that as well.
In contrast, in the summer, when the sun beat down on the tin roof, everyone sweltered.
Oh, it's scorching hot. Yes.
Baking up, like a radiator. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, all the windows, you couldn't open the windows up because all the sound would escape. So, and let the light in. So, it was a sweat box. I'm sure people would talk about that.
You didn't need to go to the sauna.
No.
You go in there feeling really comfortable and you come out as a puddle.
Yeah, it was complete opposite, wasn't it? Freezing cold in the winter and then boiling in the summer.
The Globe was the village's main source of entertainment, apart from the occasional social evening in the village hall.
The whole thing about the cinema and everything in Cliffe Village was revolved around the APCM cement factory. A big proportion of the people in the village would have worked in the cement industry at Cliffe. Also, if they didn't work there, they'd have been at Higham working for Eurolite, which made asbestos sheeting and pipes and that sort of stuff. So a lot of them would have been living in that sort of area.
Cliffe was a long walk from the centre of the Medway towns. Villagers did not have cars, and people from surrounding villages often came to Cliffe for their entertainment.
People used to come from all over the peninsula to come to the Cliffe for the cinema. So it used to be quite, it was quite full up. It was never empty or, not in use.
From time to time, when a ship was docked at one of the jetties on the River Medway, the merchant seamen would trudge along the marshes to go to the pictures. It was certainly closer than a long walk to Strood, Rochester, Chatham or Gillingham.
But unfortunately, with the way times change, it eventually died.
Well, the reason it closed was Wally was taken ill, and there's nobody going to take over.
No.
So it just sort of packed up then.
Yeah. Because Jane, although she did all the main, the financial side of that, and she couldn't run the projectors and that, so there was nobody else that could do it.
Or wanted to do it.
Or wanted to, yeah. It was a shame because it sort of partly, it was the start of the dying of the village, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Everything started to go after that. I suppose it's progression as things go on.
The cinema was up for sale in 1965 and demolished soon after.
I can remember the sort of Dad, Derek Green, Uncle Dolly, well, his proper name is Clarence Walter. They called him Dolly because he looked like a little dolly when he was. Len.
I can't think what his
I can't think what his surname.
No.
We're decommissioning the cinema. So it's Dad, Derek Green, unbolting the seats and carrying them out, and Sandra and myself on brooms sweeping up and collecting all the coins that have fallen through the seats.
Right, this is the plaque that you'll see in lots of photographs of the cinema, and it says we have installed, and it's the company which you can just see in the middle, AWHSL, sound equipment in this theatre, and I've had it now for a few years. Well, how I managed to get this was living at Norwood Corner and travelling to the 100 of Who School in the 60s. The bus stop that we used to catch the school bus from was right opposite the cinema. As they started to pull the cinema down, one of the last bits to go was the front facade. Everything else was brought into the side of the cinema where my dad's motorcycle was and the garages were. They pulled all the garages down, and so what they did was they sort of pulled it down from the back and loaded stuff into lorries actually, open lorries if I remember, and just cart the stuff away. So the very last bit was the bit at the front. And I was standing there one morning going to school, and I thought, blimey, there's nothing going to be left by the time we come home. What I might do is that sign, I've seen it loads of times over the years, but going to school, I might borrow it for posterity. And so couldn't take it to school, and luckily when we came back, it was still there, and the workmen were still in there, and I said, can I have that sign? And they said, take what you like, basically. And that's what I did. So I took the sign home. My mum wasn't best pleased, and it hung on my bedroom wall for about 15, 18 years until I got married and left home. And then it's travelled with me wherever I've been since, really.
It was the Village Hall Committee. I don't know how they decided to form it, but they decided that you needed somewhere to hold little functions and that. So they were going to form this Village Hall Committee. And they decided that as the Globe was virtually derelict by then, it could renovate it and turn it into a little hall. But as they got on stripping it out, they realised there was a lot more work to be done than they thought. Yeah. And I believe that was when they decided to sell that plot of land to get the money to build a proper hall further up in the village.
Yeah. I think Dad got involved in the decommissioning of it because he wasn't at the meeting. Right? They had the meeting, we want somebody with a truck to decommission it. Oh, Claude's can get hold of a truck. That's it, Claude can do it. Right, end of meeting.
Well, the last days of the cinema, I think it was shut up for a long time. It it didn't actually run as a cinema, and gradually became more and more dilapidated. I know it definitely, the land of the cinema was sold off, because I can remember my dad having to remove his Romanian bike at the time, a Veloset, and that went up there, gardening into the shed. The dates of that I can't remember, but I was definitely a teenager by then. So I would think I was about 13. So I've had the plaque for 60 years.
I remember Dad had brought, I think it was an 8-wheeler he brought home, and they had parked it outside, and they were carrying the seats out and put it on the back of the truck.
That's it, yeah. I don't know where they went though.
Funnily enough, the steps up to the cinema from the road are still there. Even though they built houses along in front of it and round the corner, around it onto the where the car park and the old garages were, these bloody steps, concrete steps, are still there. And I remember as a kid, they were told they were big steps as a kid. You know, they were big jumps. I think there was only 4 or 5 steps to get up to the entrance to get in there. And the rail was there for a while. I think someone must have cut that down over the years. But in the middle of the steps, there was a rail that split up the left and the right entrances. So yeah, it was an interesting time that I've never put my mind to until now.
We'd ripped all the inside out, and there was just the shell.
Yeah.
And then the next thing we knew was that they'd sold it, and the houses were going to be built there.
Yeah.
And the money was going to go towards building the new village hall that was built up in the village.
Yeah.
A row of 5 terraced houses occupies the site today.